Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward, and this is Face to Face. Our guests this week are Inuk musician Willie Thrasher and music archaeologist Kevin Howes. Thrasher first broke on the music scene in the 1960s. Howes is a music historian and DJ who received a Grammy nomination for his work on the 2016 album Native North America Volume 1. Howes has produced a Willie Dunn anthology and now Thrasher's Indian Inuit Country album that was originally released in 1994. Willie, thanks so much for joining us from Nanaimo, and Kevin, thanks for being with us from Toronto.
Welcome.
Kevin, Voluntary in Nature's re-releasing Willie's album Indian Inuit Country. Why was this something you thought the world needed to hear again?
Well, I think the world would be a far better off place the more Willie Thrasher, his music is being heard, whether that's online or on your record player or at festival stages or concert halls. This is the original tape of Willie's Indian Inuit Country, and this was produced out of Sunshine Records, Winnipeg, Treaty 1, in the early 1990s. And before the owner of the label passed on, Willie and I worked out a deal where we could share this album again with people. It's not known by many people. They only made a cassette back in the day, probably sold off stages. Willie can tell us about that. But now it can be heard by people around the world. So that's really incredible. Incredible that you have that, Kevin. Has that still got the plastic on it? Yeah, this is a master copy. Ness passed on a few copies that we could use to make a modern digital master. So this is still the last one I have in the original wrap. Amazing. Willie, the album was released in 1994. Can you tell us about that time and the original release of the album?
Oh, it was quite a incredible trip for me, because I had a phone call. I think it was from Indian Affairs that my funding has came in, and they said that I could go ahead and release the album at the Winnipeg Sunshine Records. It was such an honor. So I called Les in Winnipeg Sunshine Records, and we set up a date. And it was really exciting, really exciting time for me, because I wanted to put that album out so much. And at the time when I was there, Willie Dunn was finishing his album there. I seen him doing his last song. We said a big hello and talk, and then he went back to Ottawa, and then I went in and record the album. It was a really, really good feeling, like just being in the studio.
Can you tell us a bit about those sessions, Willie? Did you have much time to record the album, or was it in there, lay the tracks and head home?
Well, put it this way, like they told me that the timing, I had a little watch in front of me. Then I knew, when he had to play lead. I know when he had to, when I had to jump in, because I didn't know nothing about recording. I just played it by ear. Mm-hmm. And it so happened that I came close enough to make it sound good. So it was quite a challenging thing for me, because I never record timing like other professional recording artists.
Willie, what was the reaction to the album when it was released back in '94?
Oh, it was really, really, really a powerful feeling. I've been getting calls from the Northwest Territories. I've been getting calls from the magazines, getting CBC interviews, and I've been getting calls from different festival organizers for me to come to play the new songs on their festival. And it was quite amazing of how many people came and asked me to be part of my release of the album by performing live to people.
That was back then, or that's now with the re-release?
Back then.
Nice. This isn't the first time the two of you have teamed up. Kevin Light and the Attic Records also re-released the Willie's 1981 album Spirit Child. How did, not to mention also Native North America Volume 1, how did this partnership with you two come to be?
Well, I have a copy here of the original Spirit Child album. This is Willie's debut album. It was recorded for CBC in 1981. So as a DJ, I've been scouring the bins looking for old vinyl records, music that I could play in my sets. And one day I came across this record, Spirit Child, Willie Thrasher. I'd never heard of Willie before. But it looked interesting, and it had a CBC logo on it, and I took it home and listened to it, and I was blown away. The quality of the music I was hearing, what Willie was singing about, learning about his Indian Inuit culture. It was something that was new to me, and I just thought it was great. And I'd been collecting records for many years and finding records by the likes of Willie Dunn, of Shingoose, and it was incredible to learn more about Indigenous music. And I have a background in music journalism, so when I hear a great piece of music, I want to learn more about it. Who are these artists, and where do they come from, and why did they write their songs? When I looked online for information about Willie Thrasher, there wasn't too much information, so I've tried to find Willie, and I found him with his partner, Linda Saddleback, in Nanaimo. I knew that Willie was active performing locally, and we ended up connecting, and I'd also been doing work as a reissue producer and sort of pitched this to Light in the Attic about an idea about an Indigenous music compilation, and that ultimately became the Native North America, the triple vinyl box set that was nominated for a Grammy Award in 2016. So it was always just an honor to meet Willie, and I just wanted to thank him for his music that really affected me in a meaningful way, even as a person of settler immigrant heritage, and to ask for that context. And we started working together and helping to book shows, and we've clocked a lot of miles at this point. I know Willie has another 30, 40 years of that prior to even meeting me, so I'm just honored to be able to work with one of my musical heroes and have some fun in the process, and still want to just like help any way I can. So releasing Indian Inuit country, which I learned about years later, was like, oh, this is an awesome album. We have to get this out to the people again. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, I downloaded it on Apple Music the other day and been listening to it. And I mean, when we refer to Kevin as a music archaeologist, he's got some real relics there in the vinyl and the cassettes. Willie, what was it like for you when Kevin first reached out to you?
Well, for me, like it was kind of a happy moment for me where I could promote my music more, and his background had the outreach of people across Canada, and then he knew quite a bit about promoting other performers like Willie Mitchell, Willie Dunn, Eric Laundrie, and other performers, and it was such an honor, you know, that Kevin could help promote my Indian and Inuit country with my singing partner, and this way we could spread it more across Canada, more to Europe and down to the States, massive media, you know, and so he was on top of a lot of things, and there's always people calling us, connecting to us about this new album coming out. So Kevin pushed it quite a bit. So it was such a really incredible journey that we went through.
Willie, what's been the reaction to the re-release of Indian Inuit country this time around?
Oh, sometimes I'm down in the I'm walking around down to the waterfront, or I go to the mall, or I go to the festival, and then just people would come up to me and say, Willie, can you sing Medicine Man? I love that song. You know, and I hear some people singing my songs once in a while too. Like We Believe in Native Music, you know. So it was really good. Like the media did a lot of good. Like CBC, like people from the north, Mike from the north, and like Kevin, and I don't know, like it was an incredible journey for me, and I had a lot of help from people.
Well, much more to talk about with the re-release of these albums and what's next. We just got to step aside for a quick break, and then we'll continue the conversation here on Face to Face with Willie Thrasher and Kevin Howes. Stay with us. Welcome back to Face to Face. Our guests this week are producer Kevin Howes and musician Willie Thrasher, and we've been discussing the re-release of Willie's album Indian Inuit Country. Let's take it back a few years, though. When I first met you, Kevin, during the release of Native North America Volume 1, a compilation that would garner you a Grammy nomination. Can you tell us how that album came to be and your reaction to it?
Well, it was an incredible journey, and I really have to thank each and every one of the artists, families, and community members of the people that were featured on that compilation for directing me to Native North America, really. It came through my love of the music and collecting these records over a 15-year sort of journey, putting it out through Light in the Attic, who I'd been collaborating with years on projects like Jamaica to Toronto and the reissues of Sisto Rodriguez of Searching for Sugar Man fame. The album came out in 2014. This was a triple vinyl box set and a double CD. And it was incredible to see more people tuning into these incredible artists, their sounds. I wanted to put on events to help raise awareness. People like Willie Thrasher, to my feeling, were writing some of the best songs of his career. We are focusing on the vintage, the trailblazing era, when these artists didn't have the support that they have today in the Indigenous music community and business. So it was really just my love letter to them. It was overwhelming to see people, pour their hearts out over these songs and want to connect and want to book Willie and his singing partner Linda Saddleback and Duke Redbird. And I hope that can continue. It's really important because a lot of the artists are fairly grassroots. They don't have big industry dollars behind them. So it's really like up to music programmers and media and, all the fest bookers to hire people like Willie for their gigs, because they can connect with audiences unlike any I've ever seen in my life. What Willie and Linda can do to an audience, it's really inspiring. I've just been blessed to be in the audience there myself, appreciating it as well. So, the work continues. So I'm just honored to be a part of it all. And I'm just saying, it's just been such a blessing for me. It has. So now the focus is on voluntary in nature. I can work directly with Willie, and we can raise awareness about Indian Inuit country on the Bandcamp website, and that's where you can listen to this album at indianinuitcountry.bandcamp.com, or you can go to Bandcamp and check out Indian Inuit Country to support Willie. And when you support this album, it's actually supporting not only my initiative and helping to share, but directly supporting Willie Thrasher in his journey in life and music.
I think I have it up on my computer right now, just on repeat. But, as the title implied there with Native North America Volume 1, is there more to come with that anthology?
Yes, well, Light in the Attic are focused right now on Native North America Volume 2, which will feature artists from the lower 48 states, the bottom half of Turtle Island, artists like Floyd, Red Crow, Westerman. This is going to be a knockout set, but it takes a lot of work to put these anthologies together. So they're right in the thick of it right now. With that, it's been a long time coming. The Native North America Volume 1, it took me 5 years to produce. I think they're on to year 7 or so now. I'm helping as a producer, but they're doing the bulk of the production down in the U.S.
Can't wait. Willie, you were featured on that album. Did it bring some new recognition to your music?
Yes, it did. Like it brought a lot of attention to people that I haven't seen before in the media, and they came up to me with this red book and this is a small book, Native North America, and I know, like the feeling was incredible. Like that, you know, like seeing yourself in the book, the story of your life, of how you became a musician. And I remember when I played with the Cordals, you know, I was 13, 14 years old, and I didn't know much about the Inuit culture until an old man came up to me when I was a drummer of the Cordal band. He said, "Why don't you write Inuit music? Your people, your culture, your ways." You know, I never dreamed that, you know, what that man has said could bring me to where I am today, where I'm in a North American book, and you know, and a really beautiful album being sold all over the world. And it was a great job that Kevin did for all these North American native performers, you know, and I know there's a much more to come. And it was such an honor to be part of this incredible journey with Native North.
Well, when the album came out at the time, I interviewed Shingoose, rest his soul, and he spoke about what a crazy time it was back in the 1960s and 70s, and him meeting some of the Beatles and the Stones, and just a real respect for Indigenous artists at that time. Is that how you recall it, Willie?
Yes, we had crazy time when I was living in Ottawa. Like, I was supposed to perform in Toronto, you know, and then I ended up taking the wrong bus and ending up in Hamilton, you know, and they had something going there, and then and they asked me, "Willie, you're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be in Toronto, but can you do one song? And then we'll drive you to Toronto." So it worked out, you know. So it was fun. Like, people were calling us to perform in Montreal, New York, you know, and areas around Ontario, and it started building up from there. So it was a really good feeling what music can do to your life.
Was there a change that you noticed, Willie, when it wasn't, Indigenous music wasn't in the forefront of the mainstream?
Well, put it this way, like I was really into the Beatles, Rolling Stones, and Inagata Vida, Moody Blues, and Neil Young. I was doing a lot of their music, singing a lot of that for the people in the waterfront or in the hotels or wherever concerts were. But when it came to Aboriginal music, like, it really changed my life inside. And then I started seeing things inside that I never seen before. A culture that I never lived. You know, I started writing songs about things that I never grew up to live, and it was such an honor to write, like Old Man Carver, Eskimo Named Johnny. You know, we believe in native music, and and Silent Inuit. You know, talking about how much I miss my traditional ways of how we used to live in the igloos and hunt for polar bears and seal the incredible life our people had so many years ago. And I miss that so much, and I try to put all that into my music. And deep down inside, I just feel like I went back to my culture in a little bit way, and it made me feel much better.
And gonna really dig into some of those songs that you've written here soon, Willie. I guess maybe, Kevin, for yourself, have you noticed that there's been a resurgence in recent years with the mainstream paying more attention to Indigenous music, Indigenous artists?
It seems like there's a movement happening again, and the industry is being built up as well. There seems to be a lot more support for the younger Indigenous artists than there were back in the 60s and 70s. And that is great to see. In the era of the 60s, there was only a handful, people like Willie Dunn and Buffy St. Marie, Alaniso Bomswin, these incredible trailblazers. And coming into the era of Willie Thrasher and Willie Mitchell, etc. And today, the land is filled with incredible talent, and there was back in the day too. It's just maybe the light is being shone a little bit more brightly, and I hope that people share the music that they love and ask questions and connect. Music has been a great connector, even at the Native North America gatherings that we've put on together, and there's probably been around 15 now. The last one was over last summer with the Two Rivers Remix Festival out west. we had Willie and Linda come out and Duke Redbird, and we know that the audiences are Indigenous, they're non-native, all coming together to listen to the music. I just think this is incredible. Music is a great way to heal, and there's a lot of healing that needs to be done in this divisive time, and we need to come together. So I just think music is a beautiful way for that to happen, and I've seen it firsthand over the years with my eyes.
Awesome stuff. Kevin, Willie, we have more to talk about. We're just going to step aside for one more quick break, and then we'll continue the conversation here on Face to Face. Welcome back. Our guests this week are producer Kevin Howes and musician Willie Thrasher. And Willie, I've been listening to a lot of your music over the past few weeks here, and your songs are often about the land and animals. Can you talk a bit about why those are important topics for you?
When I was a kid, like when I used to live with my mom and dad, when I was 6 years old, we used to go out to our fish camp and we used to go whaling in the summer. Instead of staying in town, we used to go out in the wilderness. We see thousands of caribous, and my mom and dad had that really powerful feeling to live off the land. Of course we bought food and stuff from Hudson Bay or whatever, but the rest we caught, and my dad and mom were sort of like one of the last people that lived in both worlds, off the land and in town. And for me, I was caught in there because I had to go to residential school, taking away all my culture, which is wiped right out of my head. And my dad and mom were living hunting and living off the land in Mackenzie River. And the summertime, I would go back and see them and live with them until I had to go back to the residential school. But I've seen a lot of things were changed dramatically, and it was hard for me to try to find many of my traditional ways. And the way I found out it was through my uncle, through my grandfather, and listening to stories from the elders, and that's how it became to be an Inuit songwriter. I wrote music of the life I miss so much.
Willie, that's just amazing. Talking about that, some of your songs are often in English and Inuk at the same time. Can you talk about the importance of doing that in your music?
Well, apparently it was Les McLaughlin's idea. One I did, I think it was Silent Inuit. I think an Inuit woman, I sang Silent Inuit, and then the Inuit would repeat it, would repeat what I said in our language. And then when I did Inuit chant, it was just a chant. Because I didn't know how to write a song in Inuk because that language was taken away from me. So I just did the chant with 2 chords, and it worked out okay, and to this day, I still write songs about my culture, my ways, and sometimes I would get up 2 or 3 in the morning and I get really homesick, and then I sit down and then I write something, and I just did that not too long ago, and I'm working on my new album called Sacred Fire. It's a new song, so it's a really powerful song. So.
Willie, absolutely beautiful stuff. Looking forward to anything new we can hear as well. Unfortunately, gentlemen, we're out of time, but Kevin, always great to see you again. Willie, absolute pleasure to meet you even over Zoom. Thanks to you both for being here this week.
Yes, time is on our side. Don't forget that.
That's great. You can support this album, Willie's album, at Bandcamp.
Absolutely. That's all the time we have for this week. You can catch up on any episode you may have missed at our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. We'll see you back here next week.